Ideas take shape, thoughts bind up, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest, lead author of leadership as a masterpiece book, thought leader in leadership development, principal at Stratum, Emeritus Director at Vision Consulting, other than Mr. Charles Spinosa.
Hello, Daniel.
Welcome, Mr. Charles, an abstract essay. Can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I'm Charles Spinosa. I have been a management consultant for a little over 28 years now, and I've been helping leaders in businesses of all sizes develop themselves. I've also been helping them create organizational cultures and new products. But I've just written my new book, Leadership as Masterpiece Creation, on how leaders can make their organizations morally distinctive and masterpieces. And by masterpieces, I mean organizations that are truly admirable to people, to the employees, and that they feel are admirable themselves. It seems to me that's the best way for leaders to feel at home in their organizations and make profits. And it came out of my years of consulting, and it also came out of my background before that. I was a professor in the humanities before I became a management consultant. And I found that the early leaders I dealt with really had a strong sense of the right way to treat owners, the right way to treat customers, and the right way to treat employees. And some of them who acted on it created these wonderful businesses. And others were afraid, and they were taking from consultants and business school professors all sorts of frameworks and creating operationally effective businesses, but they weren't businesses that were their own. And so my book is about how you can create a business that has a culture that you think is just right for your customers and your employees. I take as one of my models, a simple one, Amazon. Jeff Bezos is famous for creating a culture where people really work very, very hard. And that hardworking culture is definitive of everything. And out of that, he makes life extraordinarily convenient for his customers. And that's the, he calls it relentlessness. And that's the kind of help I give to businesses myself in my consulting career.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Charles. Thank you. And today let's talk about the art of moral risk taking, redefining leadership for a purpose-driven world. So tell us, Mr. Charles,
Okay.
let's start with the core distinction. How do you differentiate a moral risk like staking your reputation on a principled but unpopular stand from the mere business risk?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. Uh, when I go to businesses, one of the things I ask leaders is what always goes wrong in your organization? And they have no problem answering, or 80% of them have no problem answering that. And what always goes wrong is something that has a moral flavor. So for instance, I went to a utility and said, what always goes wrong in your business or your industry? And the leader, without hesitating, said, it's very simple. We take advantage of our loyal customers. They're the ones paying the highest bills, and we use that money to give very good offers to attract new customers. Likewise, I went to a video game company and had a client there. And I said, what always goes wrong in your industry? And he says, we start out trying to create games that are good for both men and women, boys and girls, across gender. But when push comes to shove and things get tough, we know how to create a game that's going to appeal to the nasty side of boys, and we do that. And that's the thing that always goes wrong. Those things that always go wrong, that you have a hard time fixing, I call those moral anomalies. And it is an overcoming, and they're endemic to the company, and there is no seemingly right way to handle them. You don't want the company to go bankrupt, and so you're doing these things. And the question is, it's a moral issue. We don't want to treat our loyal customers poorly. We want to have games that appeal across genders, and to do that, we have to invent something new. And inventing something new is going to be breaking the standards of the industry. And when you break the standards of the industry, if you fail, people will think that you did something wrong. They'll think you did something morally wrong. And that's why it's a moral risk. And that's the core of moral risk taking. And what I do with my clients is I ask them what's always going wrong, then what they would love to do. That's the hard question. What, how would you like to fix it? And then what are the risks you're going to have to take to fixing it? And frequently those risks, and then we try to order those risks in order where you take the least risky one first and move on from there.
Mr. Charles, the phrase purpose driven world is used a lot. In this context, what does purpose truly mean for a leader and how is it different from a generic mission statement?
Thank you for asking that. That's one that I run into all the time. So many purposes, or what people take to be purposes in business, are what I call off the shelf purposes. So we're going to have more diversity. We're going to have more sustainability. Uh, we're going to invest more widely in good causes. Those are not the interesting purposes for a business, I think. The ones that I think are interesting are where you see something that's already going wrong in your business or industry and you correct it. That is an organically purposeful business. Now, I'm not against people who are going to try to write civil rights or write wealth inequity or any of that, and those are purposes. But the ones I'm interested in, and the ones that I think capture leaders' hearts the most, are the ones where they're correcting something where they have been involved in having it go wrong and fixing it.
Interesting, Mr. Charles. Historically, leadership has often been associated with certainty and unwavering conviction. How does a moral risk taking require a leader to embrace vulnerability and intellectual humility?
Well, it's essential because when you take a moral risk, you can't be certain it's going to pay off. Uh, there's too much that can go wrong. Uh, and I call, that's why I say taking moral risk successfully depends on moral luck. And as soon as you acknowledge that in part you need to get lucky, then you have to be a little bit humble about it. You're always vulnerable because when you are breaking a standard of the industry, say you're not gonna do the simple thing and create a video game that appeals to men. You're putting people's livelihood at risk. You're putting your company at risk. You're putting your reputation at risk as doing the wise thing for the company. And you're exploring something new that you don't know is going to work. And when you do that, it's a moral risk as well as a business risk, as well as a financial risk. And you don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen? My big case study for this one is Anita Roddick. And when Anita Roddick developed the Body Shop, she wanted a place that would take challenge the beauty business. And the beauty business at the time sold cosmetics and skincare products to women out of anxiety. You don't look as beautiful as this model here, buy this, and it will help you. And she wanted beauty products to be fun, and that's what she created. And she created her first shop, a body shop. It's like the one we know. People could sample, people could have fun in the shop, and it didn't change anything. The beauty business thought, well, that's fine. She's got women that are sort of hippies, and they can have that segment. So she realized she had to grow. She spoke to her husband, who was also her CFO, and her daughters. They had risked everything to set up the body shop, and they said, "No, let's create profits for a little while and grow organically." She took the risk when her husband went out of town of selling half the shares of the business to get enough money to start her second shop. And she started it. When her husband came back to town, he forgave her. But what happened at that point is growth became an essential part of that business. And that's the kind of moral risk you take. She could have lost her family, she could have lost her husband, she could have lost the business altogether. She didn't. She hit on a way of selling cosmetics and skincare products that numerous women fell in love with.
Mr. Charles, what does the art of moral risk taking refer to? Is it the intuitive balance between principle and pragmatism?
Um, when I think of the art of moral risk taking, what you are doing when you take a moral risk is you are establishing a new moral norm. And when you establish a new moral norm, you have to act in accordance with that new moral norm in a way that gives people a sense that they can build a good life, a beautiful life. So, for instance, when Jeff Bezos at Amazon has all his managers working 60-hour or more weeks, he has to make that something that fits together with their sense of accomplishment, their sense of themselves, and make it look beautiful to them and make them think it's beautiful. Likewise, at Google, where they promise psychological safety and following your dream. That's a norm that Google started. Other companies now have it. But in making that norm stick, you have to put it together with other practices so that people believe they have a beautiful life when they are acting that way. And that's the artfulness of it. I write about how you do that by creating a culture that supports that moral norm. And you create a culture that supports the moral norm by creating a mood and a style of behavior that fits with the moral norm. And so the style of behavior can be like Amazon's, it can be aggressive, or the style of behavior could be opportunistic, it could be pragmatic, it could be like Apple's perfectionistic, but it goes with a mood, for instance, admiring people or having a mood of zeal where you want to achieve a purpose. And you bring those together, and that gives you the aesthetic character of the moral norm that you are instituting or creating.
Interesting, Mr. Charles. Interesting indeed. So, where does the courage of moral risk taking come from? Is it a personal conviction, or it can be cultivated and nurtured within organization cultures?
Uh, well, it can be a personal characteristic and conviction. And one of the people I talk about is showing this was Winston Churchill, and he was courageous from the beginning. But with the leaders I work with, I wouldn't say, and particularly I'd say Julia Robertson of Impelum, it's really the conviction around the anomaly. They get captivated by an anomaly and they just think something's wrong and it has to be righted. With Julia Robertson, she ran a recruitment firm that's just think temporary workers, somebody that gets temporary workers in and out of seats very quickly. And she thought that was just wrong, that you needed to develop those people. Temp workers needed development like any other employees. And so she wanted to create a business where that could go mainstream. It wouldn't be just some customers that would develop employees, but everyone she referred her workers to would develop employees. And she worked to do that to change the industry. She created a number of new norms, but the most important one was her employees would go to customers that would offer some sort of development program for employees and temporary employees. And it was her conviction that that was the right thing to do that made her go, that enabled her to go through the courageous acts that she did. And she had the courageous acts required uh, firing a number of people that just thought it was too hard to do business that way. A number of very talented people who thought it was too hard to do business that way. And she needed to get a team that had the same conviction she had. And so she did the hard stuff.
Can you share a story of a time you took a significant moral risk in your career, Mr. Charles, and what is the internal dialogue you had to wrestle with before acting?
It's I am a coach, and I frequently a coach to leaders, and I frequently have to take moral risks. It's simple for me in stretching them to do something that they wouldn't ordinarily want to do, uh, and would perhaps be afraid of doing. And in the case I'm listing, it was someone who all of her life wanted to be a CEO of a company, and but she didn't have that position in her current company. She wasn't going to get it, and she didn't have the gumption to leave. And so I took the moral risk of exaggerating the difficulty she was going to face if she stayed. It's a very difficult thing to do, uh, uh, but I did. She left and she became a CEO, and it worked out. And sometimes you have to be a little bit coercive, have to bend what you believe, and for ultimately a good outcome. And I have to. You're like Winston Churchill at the time. You're always asking yourself throughout: Am I being a beast? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? And in my life, I've been lucky. I've been lucky with my moral risks, and they have worked out. And partly, I think that is wisdom about how far to push people, but it's also, I have to confess, a bit of luck.
A bit of luck for sure. How can a leader actively foster an environment where people at all levels feel empowered to take moral risks and speak up the dissenting ethical concerns?
That's great. That is how do you, for me, that translates into how do you cultivate a culture of courage? And the first thing is reward courage when you hear it. Second thing is listen to people when they're saying something unusual, when they're saying something that is challenging. The third thing is insist in it, insist on it as a standard. The headline or the best place to find this is Ray Dalio's Bridgewater. And what Ray Dalio has done is he's automated things so that during whenever somebody's talking or leading a discussion, other people can comment on it in a digital forum. Now I know people can do that on their phones now quite easily. When he first did it, they couldn't. He had to develop a digital device to have them rate people. But that's one way of doing it. People sort of like digital rating and using the device to rate them. But it is organizing a culture where you ask people tough questions and you expect them to answer. It goes with asking people to seek truth, and therefore, when you have meetings, even status meetings, you don't just ask them how things are going. You ask them what surprised them, what they didn't see coming that came. And you always ask people the question that requires them to think, to come up with an answer, as opposed to just give a common shared view. Common shared views are the death of courage, I think. It's really asking people about surprises and telling them to surprise me when I'm asking a question.
We often see moral leadership in response to a crisis. How can leaders be proactively courageous, shaping a better world rather than just reaching the problems?
Yeah, that you're exactly right about that. And I've worked at a number of companies where leaders have done amazing things under crisis situations, and then have settled down to the norm. I ask them always to ask what is going wrong, even when your business model is working well. And there is always something that's going wrong because any single business model can't solve everything on the planet. The most extreme case, and I think beautiful case of it, is Jeff Bezos with Amazon. He had a beautiful business model. He had an everything store. Virtually anything you'd ever want to buy, you could, and he could sell it to you at a lower price than you could get it other places because he didn't have bricks and mortar. And what did he do with that? Well, that should have been enough to sell things to people. But we all know that waiting for the Amazon product in the mail was uncomfortable. And so what he did was he wasn't satisfied with just the low prices and the wide assortment. He has done everything he can to get you goods as quickly as he can to you and make return of goods, if you need to do that, as easy as possible. And that's the question. What's always going wrong? What's always going wrong? What's always going wrong? And if you are constantly asking that, you're regularly going to come up with answers that then you try to uh, respond to.
Interesting, Mr. Charles. In increasingly polarized world, how can a leader take a strong moral stand without being perceived as a partisan or alienating a diverse customer and employee base?
Well, this is partly, I mean, the most honest answer is he is going to alienate some people. Okay. I think that goes without saying. So, how do you minimize the alienation? I think is the question we ask and to ask. And my answer is you have to bring out the nature of the moral anomaly you're trying to overcome. Some people will say, we don't need to overcome it. We can just leave it. And those people you're going to antagonize because you're going to ask them to work really hard to change things. Others will get that there is an anomaly here. It would probably be worth overcoming. And some will fall in love with overcoming the anomaly. Those two segments of customers and employees you can work with. And when you get your first success in overcoming the anomaly, people love success and they will feel as though they had a part in it. But even I use the example of Jeff Bezos a lot. A lot of people really hate Jeff Bezos. They think relentlessness, which is a value of his company, is not a good value to have, and they don't like him. I think most people, though, who use Amazon feel grateful for Amazon, and they give him a pass on that. I don't think there's a way of making everybody happy with what you're doing. However, I think in a world, and this is the world I want my book to create, a world where we have people trying to create masterpieces. Those are admirable businesses. Those are morally distinctive businesses. I think we'll find a way to admire ones that we can't even embrace. And that's what I'm looking to create, a world of, I call it narrow moral pluralism. I'm not trying to have us accept and admire every moral code, but a wide range of them, and feel grateful for the diversity of moral codes and the differences. Now, we can embrace, for instance, I could work at Amazon, probably not at Google. We can embrace one or another, but we can admire a wide range. And my goal is to have that kind of admiration replace the tolerance we have today for moral codes, moral orders that we don't really like. I mean, it's this kind of sullen tolerance. And I think we could have a grateful admiration much more. We might have to have sullen tolerance for those at the edge, but I think we can admire much more than we currently do, especially if we see the moral anomalies that people are overcoming to get there.
For a leader listening who feels the tension between their personal values and to their organizational responsibilities, what is the first small step they can take to start practicing this art, Mr. Charles?
That's a really good question, Daniel. Thank you for that. And actually, I have not been asked that uh, before, except by some leaders and that I've worked with. And so, and for the common thing is, I would go in. What is it that always goes wrong here? They're able to say, "What would you love to do?" They're able to tell me something that they would love to change. I want to make financial things transparent. Whatever it is, what's the risk you want to take? We talk about that, and they say, "I can't do that. That means risking my family. That means I'm going to have to spend all my time here. I'll have to devote myself." In fact, a lot of it is giving up family life. And my answer to those leaders is, how would your spouse and how would your children look at you if you succeed in this? Would they admire you? And if not, why not? In most cases, I find that leaders have not fully disclosed to their family what they're up against at work. In fact, they don't think it's the right thing to do. When I deal with um, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial companies, I'm shocked at how little they've included their family in their business life, which is an essential part of their life. So the first thing I do in those cases is help them find a way to describe to their families what they're up against to begin with. And then families, I find generally, become terrific supporters of making the change that the leader wants to make. I know this is only a partial answer to your question, but it's the tension I run into most. The point is, enlarge the story of who you are, enlarge the story that you tell, enlarge the number of people you tell the story to, and then you'll find a way, I think, to bridge most of the distances between your personal values and your business values.
Mr. Charles, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in fourth season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101, and my Science 101 and Sex 101 is it second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So finally, if you could distill the essence of truly purpose driven leader, what would it be, Mr. Charles?
The essence of a truly purpose driven leader is to create good lives for employees, customers, and himself. Their focus is on the good life of the people in the community around them.
Mr. Charles, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Thank you very much, Daniel. I really appreciate your questions, their thoughtfulness, and I hope your answers, the answers I gave, satisfied you. People can reach me on LinkedIn if there's anything I said that they want more on.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Charles Espinosa because if you support him, for sure more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Charles, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.